So what we're looking at is another al-Fashir situation very soon. The RSF is going to and has already begun massacres across Kordofan and Al-Ubaid in particular, the capital of North Kordofan. They've just in a matter of days, they killed over 100 babies within a nursery. I mean, it's the level of the scale and the level of the atrocities that the RSF is taking on is something that it defies comprehension.
Suad, I think it's very important that we talk about the importance of what the mineral resources are in Sudan. And this is a much bigger problem that I don't think gets talked about enough, particularly in the Congo, in Myanmar, and then, of course, obviously Gaza. What I have always maintained is that Western hegemony, particularly the Zionist entity in general, is all based on uber capitalism of the worst kind. People discovered that there was at least $500 billion worth of natural gas under Gaza soil. I do think that played a huge role. Can you talk more about what Sudan has to offer that both the UAE, the United States, and Israel desperately want to get their hands on?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, the agricultural resources, it's some of the most resource-rich land and fertile land in the world, especially in the west of Sudan, but also in the east along, where I live, where my family is from, the Al Jazeera region. It's known to be the breadbasket of the Middle East and of Africa, but also, like I mentioned, gold. One thing that's really important to point out is in the beginnings of this genocide in 2023, investors were speculating, given the genocide in Sudan and how much gold, the global supply of gold was coming out of Sudan, that the supply of gold would plummet, and this, in fact, did not happen. Over the UAE's, gold exports raised within the 2024, the year of 2024, the UAE's gold exports were more than 25% of what they had previously been. And so that's really an indicator when the gold exports are increasing, and when the place that is supplying the gold is undergoing this genocide, really where that gold is going, that's one of the main sources of income for the UAE outside of its oil reserves. So that I think it's really important to point out that particular mineral. But there are also minerals like uranium that have deposits along the Red Sea, and that's really a mineral that is very rare, and the U.S. and Israel in particular, in order to expand their nuclear power, it is really vital for them to take control of that particular mineral. And also for AI data centers, they're utilizing uranium as well. So that's becoming an increasingly needed mineral that Western nations in particular are looking to extract. I also want to quickly point out the U.S.'s role in this, because I think that's really obscured. So like I said, the UAE is one of the main U.S. allies. You mentioned the Israeli lobby. One of the main foreign lobbies in the U.S. is the UAE. Outside of the Israeli lobby is the UAE lobby. The UAE has considerable influence and ties within the U.S. It is the U.S.'s major defense partner, meaning that the security and defense are coordinated between the UAE and Israel. And so it's really a joke to think that the US doesn't know what's going on here. There is US intelligence that confirms the UAE's role. And the US is the main arms manufacturer to the UAE. The UAE doesn't manufacture all of these arms that are being sent into Sudan. They're not being manufactured. The UAE doesn't manufacture its own arms.
Right.
They're being mainly provided by the US, and these arms exports have only increased since the UAE facilitated genocide began in 2023. You spoke about, yeah.
I think that's a question from the chat. Did that answer for you? I just wanted.
I don't know what the question is. I had something I wanted to talk about.
Right, go ahead.
So one of the things that I pay very close attention to, I'm in commercial real estate. I pay very close attention to hard assets. I do believe that gold has become, and it is becoming the global reserve currency. Again, I do believe with the BRICS nations, when it comes to this sort of BRICS currency that is going to replace the euro, in particular in terms of what's going to be used for trading purposes, I think eventually the Chinese yuan is going to become the global reserve currency and supplant the US. But the difference that's going to come from what these nations are doing is they're going to back it with gold. And that's part of the reason why the US in particular is so desperate to get control of the gold mines in Sudan, because they understand that the most mineral-rich continent in the world is Africa by far. So getting a hold of these countries' resources, as we've done probably more effectively in the Congo as we have in some other regions, there is no question that the old saying of he who has the gold makes the rules. And there is no question that if Sudan is gold rich among other resources, because again, like I said, we know what happened with Gaza, we know what happened in Ukraine when it came to cobalt, when it came to lithium, when it comes to uranium, things of that nature. So who is actually backing Sudan on the other side? You have the Western alliance of the US, Israel, and the UAE that are trying to pillage the nation of Sudan and take control of their resources.
Okay, this question is related to that.
Yeah. Are there any major nations that are trying to defend Sudan at this time?
Yeah, I mean, primarily Pakistan, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. In particular, Egypt, because its security is very much tied to if Sudan is destabilized, then Egypt is next.
Yes. Because they've taken in how many Sudanese people have gone? I mean, a lot, right? Like more than 1 million. I thought somebody.
Millions, yeah. Egypt has been the primary state that has been accepting Sudanese refugees. Now there are very much so. I mean, I have a lot of criticisms of the Egyptian migration system and how now they're attempting to deport many of the Sudanese people that they previously let in. But nonetheless, it's one of the few countries that actually let Sudanese migrants in, which is cannot be said about most other countries, especially the U.S., which placed Sudan on its immigrant ban red list, the highest risk migrant.
You're the dangerous people.
That's right.
People.
And completely shut down any type of migration of Sudanese people in the midst of, again, the largest displacement crisis happening in the world. And so the U.S. Refusing to accept Sudanese migrants, and then also deporting any Sudanese migrants that it previously accepted that are inside the U.S. We've been at Decolonial Sudan have been supporting a lot of these cases, these deportation cases. Sudanese migrants, Black migrants, are often overlooked when it comes to how Trump's ethnic cleansing campaign in the U.S. Attempting to really remove anyone non-white from the U.S. And also kill white people with his terrorist militia of ICE is really the Sudanese people have been really facing the brunt of that alongside our Latine siblings.
Yeah.
Ben?
What about and this was a question from one of our OGs. So Israel maintains connections with both the RSF and the SAF to secure its interest in the Red Sea. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, I'm not aware of Israel maintaining ties with the Sudanese military. The head of the Sudanese military came out pretty recently denouncing Israel as a Zionist settler colonial state, and have refused further normalization efforts. And this is why you're seeing articles throughout the Jerusalem Post and all of these Zionist news sources talking about the RSF as some type of liberatory group in Sudan, because they see the value of, if the RSF succeeds in this campaign of taking over Sudan, which is what they're attempting to do, the RSF will be a key ally to Israel, Zionists know this and are being really loud about their support of the RSF. Yeah.
Okay. And then, wait, do you have more, Peter?
Okay. No, go ahead.
Okay. So, bringing this to where we are now with this war in Iran, and we see that Iran is definitely taking out its aggression, rightfully so, on all of our tools over in West Asia, including the UAE. And one of the things that I keep hearing about is that, let's say hypothetically, as we're going into the summer, Iran takes out their power grid or their desalination plants, and in that area, most of those people are going to have to evacuate, right? Like the UAE can only exist because we give them the resources to, like, if Iran were to take out those things, they'd lose their population, right? So, like, I'm just curious, like, if the ending of the UAE would benefit Sudan.
Yeah, I mean, that would very much. So what has happened in the past 2 months, since Iran closed, U.S. access to the Strait of Hormuz, and has attacked the United Arab Emirates, this particularly the U.S. bases within the United Arab Emirates, have that this has directly resulted in the liberation of many Sudanese cities and villages from RSF occupation, because the UAE's supplies have been derailed, and the UAE's economy that it needs in order to continue to funnel all of these weapons, these fighters, into Sudan through the RSF. It has been largely unable to do so. The RSF drone capacity has been severely limited, directly due to the Iranian closure of the Strait of Hormuz to the UAE and to Israel, and by these direct attacks on the bases in the UAE. So we were already seeing very much the effects of a weakened UAE on a liberated Sudan, and liberated specifically from the RSF, because again, their supply lines, their fighters, their weaponry is being severely depleted in this time, and that's giving opportunity for military defeat of the RSF in a lot of these regions, especially throughout North and South Kurdistan at this time.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. And because that was one of the sort of side benefits. You know, I've been sort of looking at this when Iran is done having their way with us. And the benefits are we will no longer exist as empire in West Asia. That's done. We're done, which is great. And then second, as I've been saying, I think Taiwan is going to get itself situated and settled, and we're going to be out of that too. And now I think that if the UAE really gets taken offline, which kind of looks like it might happen, then that might also help facilitate a resolution for Sudan as well.
Suad, before you go, I think it's very important that people understand, and I've said this many times, we've always talked about what is it exactly that we here stateside can do to help. A lot of times we see the damage that's being done overseas, and we realize that we as Americans have very strongly different opinion about particularly our domestic policy too, but especially our foreign policy. And so we want to know from your perspective what it is that we can do to help continue to spread the word about what's going on and how to effectively help facilitate whatever change we can bring about in support of the Sudanese people.
Yeah, very plain and simply. Thank you for that question. Very plain and simply, those based in the US, whether you're Sudanese or not, you have an obligation to stop the arms that are coming out of this country to kill Sudanese people. Again, the U.S. is the main arms manufacturer of the UAE, that it's manufacturing the weapons that are being used by the RSF to kill Sudanese people. And so it's not only immoral, but it's illegal under international law and under U.S. law that the U.S. continue to supply the UAE with arms, despite U.S. intelligence confirming the UAE's role here, despite U.S. lawmakers, officials, continuing to state that the UAE is conducting this genocide, and that even the former U.S. Special Envoy to Sudan's Cameron Hudson stated the U.S. could stop this at any moment with a single call. Like, that's what it would take. It would take a threat of sanctions, a threat to cut arms, not even actually doing it, just the threat of it would stop this arms supply chain. There is an active UAE arms embargo bill. We're demanding that the U.S. State Department suspend all arms sales and exports to the UAE in the condition that it continues to support and fund, give weapons, fighters, and supplies to this genocidal militia. The UAE arms embargo is a bill that was introduced. The Stand Up for Sudan Act was introduced in both the House and the Senate. We have a really accessible and easy to use toolkit that we've created at Decolonize Sudan. decolonizesudan.org/UAE arms embargo. decolonizesudan.org/UAE arms embargo. There we give you a call script. We give you all of the resources, the evidence you need. And in fact, the last page is a list of empty condemnations of your policymakers. Policymakers love to bring up Sudan, especially when it comes to weaponizing Sudan against Palestine. But they, of course, are continuing to support the genocide in Sudan as long as they are not stopping the arms that are coming from the U.S. So we've put a list of all of our politician condemnations and quotes on the violence in Sudan that have yet to sign and support this UAE arms embargo bill. And you can use that in talking to your congresspeople, like, hey, you said this about Sudan. Why are we still continuing to send weapons? Why aren't you supporting this bill? So again, that's decolonizesudan.org/UAE arms embargo.